Ooh, here we are, we're live. All right. So if you are tuning in, welcome. It's Saturday, so it's time to be a fucking witch. Which is kind of just every day. So today I'm going to be working with a couple of decks. One of them, this will be my first time really reading from this deck. It's an intense deck, I'll put it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking about, I had posted on my other Instagram, dark cards for dark times. And my theme over probably the last month or so has been, or actually several months, I'll put it that way, but really intensely over the last month, working on the shadow self, diving into those dark parts of ourselves that we want to pretend don't exist. We don't want to face those fears, those wants, hopes, dreams, anger, feelings, the things that we suppress, that we try to pretend like don't exist, right? Because everybody wants to be love and light all the time. Well, we can't be love and light all the time, 24/7, nor should we be. And it's unrealistic to think that any person can be that. And if we look at current social events going on right now, love and light, maybe that would help some people right now, but sometimes we do need to get angry, and sometimes we do need to access those dark parts of ourselves. And and I think that everyone is experiencing a sort of awakening right now, for lack of a better word, and I think that's a good thing. I think that despite all of the terrible, horrible things that are going on across the world and across our nation right now, talking about the darkness is going to help us, because the more we talk about it and the more we look at it and the more we realize that we have to have that, we're less scared of it. It doesn't intimidate us, and we can move forward from it. So anyway, down to business. I'm actually also really excited because today I have a new deck, which I'm not really gonna go over in this live, but I'll show you which one it is. I'm gonna do one right after this where I will essentially show you what this one. I'm super excited about this tarot deck. This one I pre-ordered months ago, and I thought I wasn't gonna get it until like next week, and then Amazon notification today was like, guess what, it's on its way. And I was like, shit. I stocked Instagram delivery for pretty much all day long. So I will be reading from one of the main decks that I use is the Thelema Tarot. It is not associated with the Thelema organization that you may have heard of. It has nothing to do with it, and it's not associated with the ideology or symbolism. It's simply just a name. The artwork is actually very, very pretty. It is not an ethnically diverse deck. That's the one con to this deck, I'll put it that way, as far as pros and cons go. This deck does not feature ethnically diverse characters, and I'm going to get to that after this reading. We'll talk a little bit about decks that do feature ethnically diverse characters, so that we can all make sure that we're supporting artists and creators that are representing the full breadth of humanity and not just white people. So I'm gonna shuffle, and while I'm doing this, how are you guys doing? I see Dana. Hi. By the way, are you liking your new deck? I haven't really had a chance. I know we were gonna Zoom today sometime, which I still wanna do. I wanna hear all about your deck and your experiences with it. Alrighty. The other deck we're gonna be pulling from, and the reason why I bought this deck, I'll show you here, the Occult Tarot. The reason why I bought this deck was specifically because I wanted to look at some shadow work to work on, barriers and obstacles and ways in which I could improve, but also that I could sort of, I guess, figure out what is still limiting me, or others, if I read for others from this deck. This deck is interesting. It is not a standard tarot deck, and I won't do an unboxing or go through it in detail, because you can find those on the internet anywhere. It's basically the characters on the cards, so I'll give you an example here. The characters on the cards, each card has a character name, the symbols, the background, and these are all demons of the Goetia. And it is a good deck for shadow work. It's also a good deck for looking at areas of weakness, I think, like where can I improve? I know it definitely has a different energy to it. It's I've heard people describe it as kind of chaotic, and I would agree with that. It is a challenging deck, and I would not recommend it for somebody who isn't assertive. If you don't have an assertive personality, this deck will probably not be for you. I consider myself pretty assertive, but this deck challenged me. I got it, opened it up, and was like, oh great, I love it. It's got great imagery. I really like it. I could definitely tell the vibes from it were a little chaotic, but I had a little bit of a battle of wills with this deck, if you will, and I kind of had to go, okay, you know what, you're gonna go sit in timeout for a little bit until I'm ready to deal with you. And I think at the time it was mostly because I myself was doing some of that deep shadow work and kind of going into fears and limitations and mindset and things like that. So definitely, again, the Occult Tarot is a very neat deck. It's very unique. There is a companion deck that goes with it, the Angel Tarot. So of the 78 demons or 72 demons plus the major rulers, as far as like the demonic hierarchy, there's the angelic counterparts to each of them. And some people use them together or separately. I don't think that you need to have both of them if one appeals more to you than the other, but both decks are strong decks. So like I said, if you're gonna work with this deck, be ready for it, because it'll fuck with you a little bit, as it did me. All right, so I'm gonna pull. Typically, what I tend to do when I do a like a standard reading, I don't use complex layouts and things like that. I tend to pull 3 cards as far as like from my standard deck. So that's what I'm gonna do. And as far as the Occult Tarot, I'm really just gonna pull 1 card from that. As I showed before, you can look at it, and it does give you, like up on the top, you can see up here, it gives you what the suggested correlation is if you're gonna read it like a standard tarot. There is a booklet that comes with it that has some interpretations, but they're really not interpretations, and honestly, all of the information about each one is also on the card. So I think a lot of it is, again, interpreting intuitively, just like we would any other reading. So let's get our cards. And I do not read reversals. I personally don't think that reversals themselves are super important, or, in my opinion, provide any additional information. All right, so what we've got, we've got some variety here. So our first card is Queen of Cups, and generally when I pull a 3-card spread, I approach it as this is what's happened. Okay, so this is what's happened. This is what I'm doing right now. And this is where I'm going. Okay, so past, present, future. You can also approach it from, this is where I'm at right now, these are my barriers, and then this is my ultimate destination, or where I'm headed, or what's the outcome. My dog's on the side, super interested. But I'm gonna approach it from what's happened, what's going on right now, and then what's my ultimate outcome. And then I'm going to use the occult tarot card as barriers, so possible barriers, obstacles, and or shadow concepts that need to be addressed, or that may be something that might get in the way. Okay. So Queen of Cups. Cups are your emotional suit, or your emotional house. This is everything that's happened has been emotional, right? It's been a fairly turbulent time. The Queen is, and if you kind of look at the card and you kind of notice the colors. Now the Lima deck is, I would consider it a little bit darker deck as far as the reads that you get from it. There are cards that are not as dark, but it is overall, the deck has kind of a subdued, darkish feeling to it. It was not as intuitive of a deck for me at first, until I really kind of got to know it a little bit better. But anyway, we've got Queen of Cups. So this is, generally queens are, something's been achieved, right? Some thing in life has been achieved, like you've progressed through the various levels, through your aces all the way up into your royalty suit. And the Queen of Cups is kind of that like peak of emotional event, right? It's something fairly heavy. It's you've been through something and it's really affected your life, it's impacted your life. And this chalice that she's got full of water is that emotion. But she, the Queen, is able to look at this and separate herself from it and say, okay, I see this emotion, this happened, it was heavy, it's important, but at the same time I can separate myself from it. All right, so this was first card. Second, where you're at right now, the Queen of Swords. Swords are the suit of air, of knowledge. Swords can also be a struggle or something that we're going through, and of course everybody's struggling in some way right now. The Queen of Swords is, she's looking at this going, okay, here's my struggle, but I'm holding it and I'm owning it, and guess what? I overcame, right? The white robe is her sort of like purity, her purity of soul, her purity of intention. And so as long as your intent is pure, you are going to overcome that struggle, is essentially what that's saying to us in that place. And then the ultimate outcome, if you will, we've got that this is what is going to happen in the future, or something along those lines. So wands are our creativity, our passion. They're related to fire, right? And anytime you have a two, there's a choice. So there's going to be choosing between two paths. But we've got two passionate potentials here, right, in the future. And I think that this card is fantastic right now, because I've probably in the last 24 hours had at least 5 people that I have either texted or talked to, and they've said, I am not on the right path right now. I don't like what I'm doing for work, or I feel like I could be helping. I feel like I could be contributing, especially with the social unrest that we're experiencing right now. And we're experiencing this awakening of, look, we've got to change. We've got to make changes. Everybody has to be part of this. This is a really great card for that. This is what's going to come, or this is where you're going to end up, is you're going to have a choice to make. And you're going to have to choose what you're passionate about. You're going to have to follow your heart. And that's powerful. That's really, And you know, something else you can take away from this card as far as the imagery, you've got like the hawk, and I'll kind of hold that a little bit closer so you can see it. The hawks are knowledge. They are tough. They are warriors. They are gonna stick it through. They're going to impart that. So you may also find that somebody shows up in your life that gives you that insight and says, hey, look, this could be a person, a spiritual guide, randos on the internet, doesn't matter, maybe it's me, but that person is going to show up and go, hey, look, you've got this choice, what are you going to do? Okay, so our potential barriers, right? This is our, we're going to use this as our shadow card. This saying that it corresponds most closely to the Nine of Cups. The imagery here, as far as the character and what's being presented, speaks to me. Like I said, this is my first time using this deck, but intuitively, I'll kind of hold it up so you can see it. All right. Intuitively, this is telling me that from just the imagery alone, this barrier or this potential drawback or something, an obstacle in our path is going to present as something that we need to be strong. Like we need to be physically strong to deal with. This is something that could physically hold us back. It could be illness, right? There's a pandemic going on right now. So we might get physically ill, but this might just be something that we're going to have to put blood, sweat, and tears into to overcome. So physical strength. And then as far as whether or not this resonates most with the Nine of Cups, that again is emotion. That's going to be deep emotion. The nines are going to be turbulent. That number is magically important, but also I think what you would want to know as far as the shadow element is that as far as overcoming this potential obstacle, you've got physical strength involved, but emotional strength involved. And whatever this obstacle is, it's going to show up. You want to make sure you're just prepared that this is going to happen before again, your ultimate outcome is that, hey, you've got this choice. You've got to make this choice. Your passion. One of these two things is your passion that you are meant to pursue, and overcoming this is going to bring you here. All right, so that was the first one. I promised I would speak a little bit about diversity of tarot decks because, like I said, there are a lot of amazing artists and creators, and I've seen some stunning decks. I actually have like 3 decks that I've ordered over the course of the last few months. A couple of them were like out of stock or I couldn't get a hold of them. And in the last like couple of months, I've made a concerted effort to look for decks. I would say actually probably back 6 months back at least, to look for decks that are more diverse, that feature a more diverse cast of characters, if you will. Like I said, most of the decks you see are very Eurocentric, and that is probably because that's where tarot originated roughly, was in Europe, as far as like the old Italian playing card decks that they came from. And those characters did tend to be primarily Eurocentric. But as tarot and oracle cards and other divination cards have expanded and really taken off, they're used all over the world. And to me, it would make sense that we have decks that are representative of the populations and the people and cultures using them. So one of the ones that I have seen, I probably follow, I don't know, a couple of dozen people that regularly use the Lightseers Tarot. This is a great deck for, especially if you're a beginner. It's very intuitive, or at least I found it to be very intuitive, very easy to read. This is what the box looks like. I'll just give you kind of a selection. This is the back of the cards. I'll give you kind of a selection of some of the cards. And this is a deck that's not just ethnically representative and diverse, but it's also LGBTQ friendly, age, all kinds of stuff, right? So we've got, some really great imagery. It's a very pretty deck. It's very easy to read. I felt like the images were very intuitive. It's a much more modern deck and interpretation than some of the ones that are based on Rider-Waite-Smith. I would say the Thelema deck is maybe kind of loosely based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's not exact. I felt like this deck was stunning. I mean, it's a really, really pretty deck. It's visually very appealing. You connect well with the cards. I feel like the meanings come through. Even if you're a beginner and you don't know much about it, you will probably very easily be able to intuit the messages here, you know? So that's a great deck to support diversity and inclusiveness in tarot. There's a couple of others that I wanted to mention. I actually ordered both of these in the last couple of days, and they're supposed to get here this week, and so I'm super excited. I don't have them to show you, but I will do another one of these next weekend. One of them is the Maat Tarot. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced. It's M-A-A-T. Actually, both of these decks are by the same person. Julie, her last name is hyphenated. It's Kitcha or Sitcha, and she did the Maat Tarot, and she also did the Ancestral Path Tarot, and both of those decks are very ethnically diverse. They showcase not just different skin colors but cultures, so she uses archetypes and imagery from across the world, and that's not just white and black. She's got representative of Central and South American cultures and beliefs, Native American, Eastern Asian, Southeastern Asia, lots, like all over, African continent, Northern Africa, Southern Africa, plus European. And it's a really, both decks are really, really pretty as far as the images go. The one thing I will say, so Ancestral Path you can pick up on Amazon. It's fairly affordable. The Maat Tarot, you cannot. It was apparently originally made back in the early 2000s, and she only printed so many sets of them, and then that sold out. So now if you go to purchase it, and it's not available on Amazon, you have to purchase it through the designer's website, and the website is not very mobile friendly, so just FYI. She doesn't have them for print. There's a third-party printer that prints it for you if you purchase it, and it is not cheap. The small, like, playing card size deck, if you get the smaller ones, which are going to be like maybe like about this big, those are like 30-ish plus like $14-15 shipping. If you get the larger size, which is going to be about the size of a standard tarot deck, they're like $55 plus another $15 shipping and handling. So be prepared to spend about $70 for that deck. Which I have no problem doing, again, if you are going to support artists and creators that are going to create decks that are inclusive and that showcase all skin colors and ethnicities and cultures, which I think is very important. And I will say that I think that we as a community should pay more attention to this. We should probably hold our artists and creators to a higher standard of not whitewashing tarot decks. There are so many stunning tarot decks out there that I would love to buy, but they are whitewashed. So from this point on, I don't plan to purchase any additional ones unless they are inclusive. And I think that that's super important. So I'm going to end this live. I'm going to go, and I promised I would talk a little bit about this new deck that I got that is not ethnically inclusive, and I'm going to tell you that right now. I had pre-ordered this about, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, and it actually just arrived. So I did just purchased it a while ago, but I did just get it, and it definitely sounds hypocritical of me to say I'm not purchasing any decks that are not ethnically inclusive, but I did want to go over this one because I did just purchase it. However, next Saturday I should have those 2 additional decks that I'm going to show you, and we'll do some readings with those. So Stay right there. I will be right back.